think Keith Emerson's attacking that piano.
Sounds like it. Looks like it.
There you go. Keith Emerson from Emerson, Lake and Palmer doing Creole Dance, which is from the Ginastera piece that he adapted. So,
well, he's got some chops.
He
has real chops. I mean, come on. This is...
Well, again, Emerson, Lake and Palmer was so huge into melding classical with rock, and so he usually had a part where he would do a solo piano part, and that's one of them. So
his Keith Jarrett routine, his solo Keith Jarrett in the midst of a concert.
I saw him on that concert tour play that piece, and it was pretty spectacular. We're hanging out with Daniel Asia, who, of course, from the Fred Fox School of Music at the University of Arizona, and you came on probably 3-4 weeks ago.
I did.
And we were promoting your weekend event that you had, and you said that you had some pretty good crowds.
It was dynamite. This was a festival featuring the music of Paul Hindemith, Joan Tower, and Duke Ellington. And it's the first time we had the jazz ensemble. No, the second time. We did a Bernstein festival, and Bernstein wrote a piece for jazz ensemble. But but the first time they did a whole concert.
Oh, very nice.
Of just the Duke stuff. And they blew it out of the water. It was just dynamite.
We, for some reason, are well, maybe not so quiet jazz capital. And then the jazz festival is great that we have it.
Yeah.
But between what the U of A does and then the other one, which is the high school kids, they play at the Viscount every Wednesday night.
Yeah, and they're just superlative. They've been winning competitions in New York year after year, coming in first or second or third. I mean,
and it's kids from Tucson and Nogales, especially because of the Mingus thing down in Nogales. And you're right. Last year they went to the Nationals in New York City and won the whole damn thing.
That's what I thought. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I wanted to talk. I just love talking music with you. And one of the questions, I was just thinking about this while we were watching Keith Emerson beat the crap out of that piano.
Right.
Is virtuosity, right?
Yeah.
So in music, right, we talk about. So what's the Daniel Asia the definition of a virtuoso? What would you say?
Well, a virtuoso is somebody who has extraordinary technique. I mean, that's, I think, really the definition of a virtuoso. They usually have some emotional chops as well, which is to say they know how to get the best out of whatever music it is that they're playing.
Right.
So you can be a virtuoso of the sensibility of getting into Mozart or Liszt or Asia or whatever. But you also have to have the physical capability to bring it off without any question.
Right.
And it's part of what makes, quote, art or the definition of performance, is somebody who's put in that proverbial 10,000 hours to get to the place where, they can really do it.
And you're right about the emotion side of it. It's so important because there are technical folks that can play all the right notes at all the right times.
Yeah. But that's not enough.
Right.
The greatest performers have the whole package, and they know how to really get into the music and bring it across. And that's what we composers count on, because all we do is write dots on the page.
Right.
We think they're really good dots, by the way. but then somebody has to bring those dots to life, and you want that virtuoso doing that for you.
So Thomas Dolby, the guy with She Blinded Me with Science and all this, right? He's a keyboard guy, right?
Yeah.
And he got interviewed once and said, well, isn't your music cold and whatever because you played on an electronic keyboard?
Right.
And his counter was, did you ever see how many times have you seen someone play a violin piece with absolutely no emotion?
Right.
Right? It's not about the instrument.
Right.
It's about who's playing it and how they do it.
Exactly. And no, the instrument is purely a mechanism to provide the conduit for communication between whoever wrote the music, and it could be the person on the spot coming up with the music, and the audience.
Who is considered it would be classical music because it's got to be 100 or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The first virtuoso. Who's the first virtuoso that someone would heard of? Is it Liszt?
No. You got to remember that 250 years ago, there wasn't any differentiation between a composer and the performer. So Bach played all of his great organ pieces on the organ.
Right.
Mozart played all of his piano concertos. He wrote them for himself so he could go on the road and make more money. I mean, you didn't get much money for a piece of music.
Right.
But to play it, yeah, they had to pay for it. And then Beethoven was a virtuoso. He was one of the greatest performers ever. And then from him, then it's into Liszt, who was one of the greatest, and then you get the great pianist at the end of the 19th and into the 20th.
Because I feel like Liszt was the first guy that was like, he'd be the earliest version of
he was a rock star.
Of the rock star.
Oh, he was a rock star. There's no question about it. And then don't forget Paganini.
Right.
I mean, because Paganini just apparently was physically endowed with fingers that could do things that nobody else had ever done, and which it's still really hard for people to do now.
As people say, if I ever learn my fingers are too short to learn to really play guitar.
That's right. That's right. It's good to have mine are. I'm okay. I play guitar, but it's nice to have longer fingers.
Like when I look at guys who are like my favorite guitarists,
yeah,
they got those long spidery fingers.
Oh, they do. They do. They can move them around really easily.
So for you, of all the people that you've seen coming in and out of Tucson, the Emmanuel Axes of the world, who would be your top 2 or 3 of who you would say is that virtuoso that has the technical chops, the emotion, they know how to interpret a piece? Who would be that you've seen that just blew you away?
You're putting me on the spot, aren't you?
That's what we do. We don't ask easy questions here. Like,
so we're in an interesting place right now. Look, there's no question that Yo-Yo is a great cellist.
Right.
But Yo-Yo's kind of sucked the air away from any other cellists. And there have been absolutely wonderful, other great ones. I mean, certainly Yitzhak Perlman's a wonderful violinist, but he's getting towards the end of his career, and we need to look on to other great young ones who are coming through. Let me think who else. There was a great pianist, a great Russian pianist who has great technique, and I think her name is Kearns. And she may be coming back this year, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
She's really sharp, and she's going to develop into someone great. But there are so many fabulous young players out there now. And the question is, I'm taking your question a little bit off track,
okay.
But the question is there going to be an audience that's going to go out to hear them? That's my concern. I hope so, because technically these cats are the best of anybody,
right?
Of any generation that we've had technically. Now they have to figure out the emotional inner landscape that they want to bring, and that's harder now for our younger players.
So we've had discussions on the air with rock musicians, right? And you say, how do you make money, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's guys from older legacy groups, even we had Roger Klein from Roger Klein and the Peacemakers here, and I said to him, how do you make money? Because he says one of his things, like, they were the top-selling internet-only albums, whatever, right? And he said, look, I could take all my internet money, and it won't even pay my mortgage.
Correct.
Right? He goes, I have to sell tickets and sell T-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Mm-hmm. So in the world of classical musicians, how do they make money?
Well,
is it really just touring?
It's really touring. They're playing, the performers. For composers, it's a new world, and they're finding their way. That's all I can tell you, because you don't make any money from CDs.
Right.
I mean, that's just gone.
And even less from streaming.
And less from streaming. I mean, I went on the road to give some talks at different universities. I just came back.
Right.
And I brought some of my newest CDs called To Open in Praise.
Right.
And I took it into one talk, and the professor kind of looked at me, my buddy, and he said, I'm not sure my students really know what these are.
Right.
You know, they just pretty much download everything off their computer now. Now, he was being a little bit facetious,
right?
But we're almost to that point.
Sure.
And the streaming model, Spotify and this stuff, I mean, it pays a cent on a play. So the guys my age, we pretty much make our money teaching in universities.
Right.
But that's going to probably go away as universities become less and less, at least this is my fear, interested in the arts, and just they're going to be interested about somehow putting, as we say, butts in the seats. You'll excuse me, but that's how administrators think. So we're really on a race to the bottom, which is a disaster for us. And I'm trying to make sure that we don't, that we actually start moving back up and train students so that they can know the difference between a Beethoven and a Lady Gaga. Now,
Right.
Is Lady Gaga a disaster? No, but guess what? Beethoven's been around for a couple hundred years, and people have said, hey, this is some interesting stuff that you might want to listen to before you reject it out of hand. And we don't know whether Lady Gaga is going to be around in 50 years, quite frankly. My guess is she's probably not.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
8:45 in the morning, one more segment with Daniel Asia, 790-2040. My phone's been blowing up during this entire conversation, so I got to see what you guys are doing to me. So, all right, let's go pay some bills. Ed Alexander spinning the tunes. Wake up, Tucson, 10:30 The Voice. All right, 8:50 in the morning, little Steve Howe mood for the day, bringing us in, talking to Daniel Asia. Steve Howe was also in a group called Asia, but that's a whole other show.
Whole other bag.
We're talking music, virtuosos. I want to switch gears on them real quick. You brought up an interesting term that I'd never heard. I said melodic hook. You said earworm. Okay, and we talked about how I was just saying it just seems like from the classical days to Lady Gaga.
Mm-hmm.
For a majority of the world's population,
Mm-hmm.
it's about the melodic hook or earworm that gets stuck in your head.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the psychology of the earworm? How does, why?
I think it's real simple, and that is that any good music, and I'm going to use that, was a great composer named Gunther Schuller. And Gunther Schuller said, okay, there are two kinds of music, good and bad music. So let's talk about cross-genre, right? It doesn't make any difference what genre.
Sure.
Any music has to have a really good idea. And you talk about ideas in any kind of genre, and we talk about it in music. In the mid part of the 20th century, we got away from that to our detriment. And guess what? We're back, though, in classical music. That much I can tell you. There's wonderful stuff in the last half of the 20th century and into
Right.
the 21st century. And it simply is a matter of coming back to the whole notion that an idea is, in fact, something that combines rhythm and pitch, which is the sounds going up and down, and usually some kind of dynamics or something that is memorable.
Right.
Now, we don't know why things become memorable. It's pretty hard to figure that out. But we know it happens. It's kind of like whatever the justice was in the Supreme Court that says, we can't define pornography, but you know it when you see it. Right? Okay. So an earworm is something when you hear it, there it is, and it sticks in your ear. Whether it's Beethoven 5, whether it's Beethoven 3,
Yes.
whether it's, a hook, yummy, 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 I got something in my, love in my tummy. Now there are some stupid hooks, by the way, that you want to get rid of and you can't get rid of.
Right.
And talk to my wife because I end up going over and over humming something and it drives her berserk.
Right. No, you do it. We do it all the time.
We all do it, but that's present in every form of music, and it's really important. It seems to me that something be memorable.
And it's interesting, too, is that even if you're not a big fan of a genre,
Yeah.
there are certain songs in that genre that still have the earworm.
Sure.
Like I was saying to you, you may not be a big jazz person, but when you
Yeah.
hear Take 5 by Brubeck,
You know it.
it gets stuck
It
in your
is.
head, and you're like, boom, I got it.
It is, exactly. So that's really, an earworm, or what did you call it?
A melodic hook.
A melodic hook. A hook. And a hook is a hook. And oh, thank you.
This is hooked on a feeling. Is this what's,
I'd say it's just a hook.
is this your song that gets stuck in your head?
A lot.
Okay.
But again, so when you think about like pop artists of the last 30 years, 40 years, right?
Yeah.
Michael Jackson's a perfect example.
Sure.
If you listen to the best of Michael Jackson,
Yeah.
and let's say there's 26 songs on it,
Yeah.
18 of them have some sort of earworm.
Yeah, you're going to remember
it. Boom.
You're gonna
That's how you
remember
sell
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of records.
Yeah.
Is
And
the
look,
earworm.
in every genre, in country music,
Right.
it is not so easy. I mean, I know this.
Right.
To write something that really is going to have that hook effect.
Right.
I mean, it's really hard. I mean, there's only one country western tune that I remember, and I only sort of remember, and that's from 40 years ago, maybe 30s, called Queen of Hearts, and I don't remember it.
Sure, Juice Newton.
Juice Newton.
You remember that?
Oh, we do.
Okay. And yeah, but
Na-na-na-na-na-na.
that's it.
That's,
And to come up with something that you really can catch on to, I mean, that's the only thing I remember out of that genre.
let's get Charles Heller on. He might tell us about Shostakovich before it's all over. Charles, what's up, buddy? What?
No, this is a different one. One of the best musical hooks in 4 notes I've ever heard is dum 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 dum. The Star Trek the beginning of the music from the original Star Trek, and it is a direct steal from the open of Mahler's First Symphony.
There you go. They're always stealing from us, by the way, and not paying royalties, just so you know how this works.
They're going for somebody in the case of Mahler who's too long dead to sue them for copyright violation.
That's right.
But the point of the matter is that if you look at things like look at Emerson, Lake and Palmer's "Welcome Back, My Friends" to the Show That Never Ends. That's they're using Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition for that, just sped up. So I mean, there's a lot of steals from classical music that appear in rock.
No question about it.
In Hollywood, maybe talk about that a little bit.
Thank you, Charles. I see it in soundtrack music all the time. Like John Williams, if you listen to Star Wars.
Oh, he's ripped off everybody. That's what he does. I mean, you'll excuse me. John Williams is a fine composer for commercial stuff, but he doesn't have a voice or a style. What he does is he chooses from the best, and he rips them off, and he makes a ton of money, and more power to him to have found a way.
Because one of my favorite music from a ballet is Swan Lake.
Yeah, sure.
All right,
sure.
And I'm listening to it, and I hear this one little, maybe 9 seconds. I go, oh, that's the Imperial March.
Yeah.
From Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
You hear it all the time. But Charles right on the rock guys, like my guys from Yes will tell you that they listen to Stravinsky and Sibelius, and they were ripping those guys off.
Ripping and riffing. Ripping and riffing. Look, there's no way that you, as a composer, can't look to the past.
Sure.
And listen. In other words, any composer, whether it's in whatever genre it is finding all of the things that they listen to and then coming up with their own music. Right? We all stand on the shoulders of the great guys. There's simply no way around it.
And what's amazing is there's never an idea, there's never a lack of ideas, right? You think, oh, it's already been done. It's already been done. And
yeah,
it's not all been done.
No, it hasn't all been done, or else we would have stopped a long time ago. But it's finding your own ideas and presenting your own personality through this stuff.
It amazes me, and it always has. After all these hundreds of years, people are making music, writing notes. There's 44 keys on the piano or whatever.
88 in most
88.
countries.
88. I'm sorry. Yeah, 88. I only have half a brain left.
And
but they come up with everything. I mean, there's a song every day. There's a new song. I mean, how many songs get written every day? How many ways can you put all those notes together? And it just keeps going. It's just, there's no end.
And God willing, it will, as long as humanity's on the face of it. Look, music is simply one of those, it's one of the very few things that makes us human. That's what we do. We sing. We dance. We express ourselves. No other species does it. And it's so damn cool. It's unbelievable. You know, I've got the best group of students I've ever had, and every one of them is saying something different and saying something incredibly cool. And your audience will get to hear them on our composers concert beginning in next semester. I don't know when it is. I should know that, but I don't. But you know, sometime in February we're going to do it, and I love it because I get to wake up every morning and hear what these guys are producing.
You're right.
And it's so exciting. It's like, yeah, another generation is coming up with great stuff.
And it doesn't matter who you are. There is some sort of music with some sort of rhythm to it that will get you moving.
Sure.
Don't know what it is. Everyone's got different strokes for different folks.
Sure.
But you're right. It's one of the things that definitely defines our humanity.
No question about it.
All right. When we come back the next time, we're going to talk about the effect of rhythm and how everyone forgets the bass line.
Ooh.
Everyone forgets the bass line.
Okay.
So
that's a great one.
Because, of course, if you removed it, you would miss it.
Yes, and McCartney knew that. The Beatle bass lines are really good.
So we'll talk about that next time with composer Daniel Asia from the Fred Fox School of Music.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure. I could talk about this junk all day. It's good junk, though.
Yeah. Oh, it's great junk. It's more than junk. It's more than junk.
All right, everyone, go vote. If you haven't voted today, go vote. No on 204, yes on Gary Watson and Mariano Rodriguez, and no on that horrible 454 up in the Oro Valley. Wake up.
Always look on the light side of life. Always look on the bright side of life.